It's basically really old-fashioned discriminatory methods to old-fashioned discrimination with new methods to humiliate, to intimidate, and to just essentially push women out. And that's what's happening. Yeah, and maybe that's why Niamh Smyth, as the only woman minister with responsibility in this area, came out far stronger than many of the men in the cabinet.
Do you think that was disappointing, that it was Niamh Smyth as a female minister to be the strongest individual in the cabinet or in government to criticise that? Did you think that some of them could have been stronger?
I think there was probably an element that the cabinet as a whole, or the government as a whole, were sort of trying to balance the sort of economic and political pressures that come on them to sort of not upset big tech companies that contribute to the economy so much, job creation, and which Donald Trump's administration has made it his, a policy to sort of deregulate and empower them. I think they were looking at it too much through that prism, where there was a more sort of visceral response from women in the Dáil and from Minister Niamh Smyth, who went out on a limb in her defence. She said she was speaking in a personal capacity, but she did go against the grain of the rest of the cabinet by saying that, personally speaking, she would be in favour of banning Grok altogether.
Something that we heard from any minister that was asked, and any minister who was out in the last week or two, for whatever reason, was asked, whether or not they're going to deactivate their own accounts, what were their opinions on it. But one of the things they were all saying was anybody who has seen this happen or who has experienced this, has been the victim of this, that they need to report to Gardaí. And we saw in the media committee then on Wednesday that 200 images generated by Grok are being investigated now. That's an important kind of arm of the state now as well, having to look into that and make sure that there is potentially prosecutions in relation to that. Because I know me personally, I have seen images online and I've flagged them or I've reported them, and you get an email back then from X a few days later saying, actually no, there was no breach of any of our rules. You would think that there's people, that the public will see this and hope that something comes of these investigations as well.
And you can get death threats, a series of death threats, as many women, journalists, politicians, or people in the public eye might have got. You get a series of death threats, you report it to X, and their response is to suspend that account for 48 hours. And then it'll be reinstated and that person can continue doing what they were doing already.